36 members of Congress are in hot water after new reports show they neglected to disclose their financial holdings and trades as mandated by law. According to Insider, the 36 members are in violation of 2012's Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, also known as the Stock Act, which requires they publicize their and their families' investments in a timely manner. Those in violation include Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was late in disclosing a $50,000 investment made by her husband in a youth polling LLC, Senator Rand Paul, who was late in sharing his wife's purchase of stock in a biopharmaceutical company that manufactures an antiviral COVID-19 treatment, and Representative Kevin Hern, who failed to properly disclose a July string of investments totaling as much as $2.7 million. Joining us now to discuss is Deputy Washington Bureau Chief for Insider, Dave Levinthal. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And so are you seeing an uptick in this, and how did you identify a lot of these undisclosed investments?
Sometimes 1, 2, 3 new members a month, even a week, who are, to one extent or another, violating the transparency provisions of the Stock Act, which is a law that Congress itself passed back about a decade ago. And the law was designed to defend against conflicts of interest, to provide the public a picture window view into the personal finances of lawmakers at a time when they're up on Capitol Hill and making financial decisions that are supposed to be in the public's interest. So is there an uptick? Yes, we've definitely seen a trend toward this. And is it problematic? Well, ultimately, the public is got to be the judge of that.
Can you give us a sense of the range of the size of these kinds of unreported investments? Is it, 2.7, obviously, 2.7 million is a large figure, but it was a lot of much smaller figures, or kind of what did that look like?
So of the 36 that Insider and other media organizations have identified over the course of this year, they range from pretty small. We're talking thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, small relatively speaking, I should say, all the way up to the 7 and 8 figures. Pat Fallon, for example, a congressman from Texas, was well into the 8 figures with the number of trades, the dollar figure of the trades that he made. Representative Harshberger from Tennessee, for example, had made hundreds of individual trades that added up well into the millions of dollars. So we're definitely not talking peanuts here with certain members of Congress who are very, very active stock traders and do this on not just a yearly or a monthly basis, but a weekly or a daily basis when it comes to making
And I suppose their response is, whoops, I forgot that I just dropped $1 million into XYZ or company.
Well, the Stock Act is very clear with what they have to do. Now, members of Congress are allowed to trade stocks. There are bills out there that would ban members of Congress from trading stocks, but those bills have not passed. So the situation as it is right now, the status quo, is you can trade stocks so long as you disclose them in a very timely fashion. And that's a 30 to 45-day period, depending on the trade. So we've asked all of these members, well, what happened here? How'd you screw this up? This seems pretty straightforward. And the answers that we've gotten have been a range of answers. For example, we've had some people who've just fessed up and said, look, drop the ball. Didn't do this right, my bad, going to do better next time. We've had a few who've been defiant, who said, well, actually, our reading of the law is a little bit different than what other people's reading of the law are. We actually didn't break the Stock Act. And then we've had others who've just simply flat out refused to explain what precipitated them being, in some cases, weeks, months, even a couple of years late in making these mandatory disclosures that, again, this is the law. This is not optional. If you read the letter of the law, it says you got to do this. And if you don't, then you are in violation of the Stock Act.
And which of these raised the most eyebrows to you in terms of their potential relationship to inside information that they gained through their duties as a member of Congress, or perhaps even connected to some legislation or some activity with an agency that they were themselves involved in?
Sure. Well, I should note that some of these that we found truly seem to be clerical errors. It was just a matter of them being a week or a month late, and there wasn't any necessarily any relationship with official actions, no whiff of insider trading or any of the types of activities that are expressly prohibited by the Stock Act. There have been a few of these trades, though, however, where members of Congress are dealing with stocks or buying or selling stocks in say, defense contractors, and they sit on the House Armed Services Committee. You brought up Rand Paul before. His wife made a stock trade in a company that was very, very sensitive to the COVID-19 pandemic, right as the pandemic was gripping the nation. We've had other people who we've identified who are very, very out front environmentalists who own and are buying and selling oil company stocks. So whether there is questions of insider trading, hypocrisy, whatever, again, people can be the judge of that, but there are definitely a very close relationship in some of these cases with the members' personal finances and their official duties on the committees that they serve on in the House.
Yeah,
or the Senate, for that matter.
Senator Paul, for instance, he said in a statement, because I remember reading about this story with respect to him specifically, he said that, according to him, the form was not transmitted, and he promptly alerted the filing office. It's because of a clerical error. That was his claim, and that his wife lost money on that investment.
That was his best defense, actually, that he lost a lot of money.
Right.
Not a lot.
Not a lot of money because it wasn't a sizable investment.
But it stayed pretty flat. Now, you don't always, even when you have insider information, you're not always gonna nail it. So that's not entirely a decent defense. But last question, David, what is it going to take to get lawmakers to get to the point where the public already is, which is that you should not be able to trade stocks as a member of Congress?
So Jeff Merkley, senator from Oregon, he has sponsored a bill along with some others that would expressly prohibit lawmakers from doing this. The original version of the Stock Act also sought to do that, although ultimately that did not come to pass as part of the bill. Some lawmakers just simply don't trade stocks. They voluntarily just put all their money in mutual funds or broadly traded funds, bonds, whatnot, and that they see as something separate and apart from trading in individual stocks. We've had other people in Congress, a small minority, but still a notable one, that put their money in blind trusts, where it's a signed, sealed public agreement where they have no control or very little control over their own money, which is dealt with by a trustee, a third party. And that gives them a sort of plausible deniability of any trades that happen on their behalf. So it right now is very much up to the members. I should note Tom Malinowski, a Democrat from New Jersey, he's gotten in a whole lot of potential trouble this year because of our reporting, because of what is happening in the House Ethics Committee, an investigation going on. He too put his money ultimately in a blind trust after he just simply had not revealed for months or even a couple of years at a time that he had been making trades at all in the way that the Stock Act requires him to do so. So definitely just another example of many that we could offer up here as to lawmakers, or again, one reason or another, just not being able to get this right with the Stock Act.
Dave Levinthal, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
We'll have more Rising after this.